Okay, let's dive right into a story that has absolutely rocked the political world. A public figure has been targeted, and the fallout? Well, it has been immediate, intense, and incredibly divisive.
When a major crime happens and the motive isn't clear, it creates this vacuum. And in this case, that vacuum was filled instantly with political accusations, kicking off a blame game that is more vicious than ever. We're going to break it all down.
But hey, before we get into the thick of it, do us a favor and smash that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss one of these explainers when they drop. All right, let's start with what we actually know. The whole story revolves around conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. He was at a speaking event, and it was cut short in the most violent way imaginable. So on September 10th at Utah Valley University, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. The facts are just that stark, that shocking. What was supposed to be a political event turned into a crime scene. Now the authorities, they moved fast. They apprehended a 22-year-old suspect named Tyler Robinson. But here's the absolute kicker. The motive is a total mystery. And that information vacuum, it created the perfect storm for political finger-pointing. With no clear answer to why this happened, the blame game kicked off almost immediately. And the first shots were fired hard and fast from one side of the political aisle. The very first theory that hit the airwaves came from Republicans and conservative voices, and they pointed the finger in one very specific direction. Yep, without even waiting for a motive to be announced, they concluded that this horrific act was a direct result of left-wing rhetoric, putting the blame squarely on their political opponents. But that narrative didn't go unchallenged for long. Democratic Representative Jasmine Crockett went on the Breakfast Club radio show to offer a completely different, and I mean completely different, perspective. She pushed back, and she pushed back hard. She called it wild that Republicans would immediately jump to that conclusion with zero evidence. She was really clear that, from her perspective, Democrats across the board were denouncing this kind of violence. Okay, so if the initial claim is rejected, what's the alternative? Well, Crockett didn't just play defense. She came out with her own counter-theory about who was really responsible. And this is where she completely reframed the whole debate. In her view, the blame didn't belong to one political party, but to what she called a culture of violence being pushed by the right. Representative Crockett didn't just, drop that bombshell phrase and walk away. She came prepared to back it up, laying out what she called the facts behind her reasoning. So, as part of her case, she claimed that most shootings have a connection to white supremacy. She then brought up the alleged GOP ties of people who attacked past presidents and pointed to links between shootings and groups like neo-Nazis and the Proud Boys. And she got ahead of the criticism she knew was coming. She basically said, "Don't come at me with race baiting. I'm not doing that. I'm just going on the facts as I see them." Then she took it all the way to the top. She pointed to former President Trump's rally rhetoric as a key example, arguing that when he said things like "beat them up," it was contributing directly to this culture of violence she's talking about. This whole tragic situation and the debate that exploded from it, it's forced a much bigger, much more difficult conversation into the spotlight. Where exactly is the line when it comes to free speech and the consequences of that speech? On that same show, the host, Charlemagne the God, made this incredibly powerful point. He argued that, sure, you have the right to say what you want, but you don't get to control how the world reacts, or what might happen because of your words. And Charlemagne's point was underlined by a really tragic irony here. Charlie Kirk himself had argued in the past that some gun deaths were a price worth paying to protect the Second Amendment. And in the end, he was killed by the very thing he was talking about. And that brings us right back to Representative Crockett's core argument. She basically said free speech has never been a free-for-all. It's not an absolute right without any limits. There are always boundaries. So this really leaves us with the million-dollar question that this whole tragedy forces all of us to think about. Is all this heated political talk from every side creating a culture where violence is seen as an option? And if it is, where do we, you, me, all of us, draw the line between free speech and dangerous speech? That's the heart of it, right? We genuinely want to know what you think. Let us know your take on this in the comments section below. And that's our breakdown for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. And hey, don't forget to like this and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that are shaping our world. We'll see you on the next one.